This is Alexei Kravchenko, just 14 years old when a film changed his life forever. He wasn't a trained actor. He didn't dream of fame. He was just a kid, shy, ordinary, unaware that he was about to step into one of the most brutal, haunting films ever made. The movie was called Come and See, and what made it truly terrifying? Nothing about it was fake. The bullets? Real. The explosions? Real. The fear on his face? Absolutely real. This wasn't a movie set filled with safety gear and Hollywood illusions. It was a living nightmare filmed deep in the swamps of Belarus, where war had once swallowed entire villages, where the ground still remembered the screams. They weren't running through studio fog. They were running through marshes filled with parasites. They weren't pretending to be terrified. They were terrified. But to understand Come and See, you first have to understand the man who made it. Elem Klimov didn't set out to make entertainment. He wanted to make a warning, a mirror held up to humanity's darkest face, because he knew that darkness. He had lived it. When Klimov was a child, his home city, Stalingrad, was burning. He and his family escaped on a raft as bombs rained down from the sky. The river glowed red with fire. He was just a boy, floating through hell, watching his world vanish in flames. That memory never left him. Years later, when he became a filmmaker, he tried to make light-hearted comedies, as if laughter could drown out the echoes of war. But fate wasn't done with him. In 1979, his wife, Larisa Shepitko, a brilliant director in her own right, died in a car crash while preparing her own film about war. After that, Klimov stopped smiling behind the camera. He made a promise to himself. Every film I make from now on will be my last. That promise gave birth to Come and See, a film he would spend nearly a decade fighting to make, because Soviet censors rejected it again and again, calling it too violent, too hopeless, too real. But Klimov refused to turn war into spectacle. He didn't want heroes. He wanted truth, and truth, he believed, should hurt. To bring that truth to life, he needed more than actors. He needed witnesses, people who could still feel the shadow of war on their skin. So when he began casting, he wasn't looking for talent. He was looking for innocence to destroy. That's when he saw Alexei, a boy who hadn't even come to audition. He was just there to support a friend. But Klimov saw something in his eyes, that quiet spark of purity, the kind that could shatter on camera. He pointed and said, "That's him." From that moment, Alexei's childhood ended. He was put on a strict hunger diet, running miles a day, losing weight, watching his reflection fade. He wasn't eating like an actor preparing for a role. He was starving like a boy in a war zone. The director even brought in a hypnotist to protect him from trauma, to help him forget what he'd seen. But hypnosis didn't work, because what Alexei was about to live through couldn't be forgotten. In one scene, he stood trembling in an open field while real bullets sliced the air around him. The explosions you see on screen, they weren't digital effects. They were real detonations, timed seconds from disaster. After one take, Alexei clung to Klimov, shaking. "Is it over?" he asked. Klimov looked at him, silent for a moment, then said quietly, "Go back." Every emotion in Come and See, every scream, every blank stare into the camera, wasn't performed. It was lived. By the time filming ended, Klimov was hollow. He had spent everything he had, emotionally, spiritually, humanly. He would never direct another film again, because how could he? Once you've captured hell, what's left to show? But the world wasn't ready to look away. When Come and See premiered, audiences didn't clap. They sat in silence, shell-shocked, changed. And somewhere in that silence, a single truth echoed. Some movies don't end when the credits roll. They keep living inside you. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, the silence felt heavier than the explosions. No one celebrated. No one smiled. The crew just stood there, drained, pale, hollow, as if the war they recreated had never truly ended. For Alexei Kravchenko, the 14-year-old who had just lived through it all, that silence became permanent. He went home, but part of him never really left the swamps of Belarus. His mother said he barely spoke for weeks. He would sit in his room, staring at the wall, eyes open but distant. The director had warned him, "You'll never be the same after this," and he wasn't. Years later, Alexei said that while filming Come and See, he stopped understanding where acting ended and reality began. He wasn't pretending to be scared. He was scared. The sound of bullets, the smoke, the screaming, it all stayed inside his head long after the movie was done. The hypnotist who was meant to protect him couldn't erase the memories, because how do you forget something you truly experienced? For the people who watched it, Come and See wasn't just a film. It was a mirror held up to humanity. Audiences wept in theaters. Some walked out midway, unable to bear it. Even hardened soldiers who had seen real combat said it brought back memories they had buried for decades. One German veteran, after watching it, approached Klimov quietly and said, "Everything you showed is true. I tried to forget, but now my children will see." There was no higher praise and no heavier burden. Cinematographers and directors around the world were left stunned. Roger Deakins called it mandatory viewing. Tarantino once said it might be the greatest war film ever made, because unlike every other war film, this one never tries to entertain you. It doesn't let you escape. It doesn't let you breathe. It just shows you. And that's why Come and See stands apart. It's not about soldiers or strategy. It's about innocence dying on camera. The camera never looks away. It stares, unblinking, as a child's smile fades into terror, and terror turns into numbness. And by the end, when Alexei stares straight into the lens, into us, it feels like history itself is asking for an answer. Did we learn anything? After the film's release, Klimov was offered more projects, big ones, prestigious ones, but he refused. He said, "I have said everything I needed to say," and he meant it. He never directed again, because some truths, once spoken, don't need repeating. He spent his final years in quiet isolation, watching the world forget the lessons he tried to carve into its memory. But his film didn't fade. It grew louder with time. Decades later, Come and See was restored and re-released, and a new generation discovered it. Younger audiences, raised on fast edits and flashy effects, sat frozen as a forgotten boy from 1985 reminded them what real fear looks like. Because fear doesn't age, pain doesn't need translation, and truth never loses power. Slowly, softly, reflective, Alexei Kravchenko eventually returned to acting years later, but the innocence in his eyes was gone. You can still see that haunting emptiness whenever he speaks about the film. He says he doesn't like to rewatch it, because to him, Come and See isn't a memory, it's a scar. In the end, Come and See did what no propaganda, no speech, and no history book could ever do. It made people feel war, not as glory, but as grief. Because the greatest horror isn't found in monsters or ghosts. It's found in what humans do to each other. And sometimes, the scariest movies aren't the ones that make you scream. They're the ones that make you remember.